I'm so excited to talk to you. I feel like you have a unique insight into a place in the world of various countries across Africa that are at the forefront of Bitcoin adoption, not only from what we're actually seeing in terms of where it's being used and adopted, but also the importance of Bitcoin. Right here in the United States, there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin's cool. It's one of a lot of different, investment assets that I have, and maybe it's going to go up in price, maybe it won't." But there's a lot of folks, my understanding, across Africa, who this is a lifeline. This is, incredibly important. And so maybe let's just start with like when you think about kind of all of the work you've done, all of the data and information that you've gathered over the last few years, like, what is the importance of Bitcoin to various African nations?
That's definitely a great one. So historically, going back to the early days of when Bitcoin came into the continent, a lot of it was speculation, as you would expect. A lot of people got into Bitcoin hard, thinking they'll be millionaires overnight. That resulted in a lot of scams coming into the continent, which was really bad for the PR of Bitcoin overall. But then over the years, what we started seeing, especially with regards to younger generations, is they're now noticing that Bitcoin is more than just this speculative asset or like this number go up technology. And there's a lot more to it, specifically from the angle of a superior monetary network. And one of the major things or major benefits that they do see really early on is, first of all, via the integration of the Lightning Network, which is through BitNow, for example, is a lot of people are starting to see that you could actually use Bitcoin on a day-to-day, both in terms of remittance as well as local commerce, which is unheard of in terms of using local currencies. Number one, these currencies having a lot of inflation. They see these currencies, even in terms of intra-country trade, a lot of that is not really done so smoothly, so to speak. But with Bitcoin, it allows you to have access to an open monetary network that is global, instant, cheap. So it's one of those things where over the years, we've seen a lot of more people move out of the speculative bubble and into actual use cases like remittance, like I said, commerce, and then leveraging this technology to actually send money cheaply. And the thing is, not only is it banking the unbanked, it is also providing a viable alternative to those that are currently banked. Because again, the problem with even those that are banked is they're getting underbanked, so to speak, which is having all these unreliable bank services at their disposal, as opposed to being able to access Bitcoin, which is a superior system, so to speak. So really, those are the trends that we're seeing, and will likely continue to increase as more wallets start to introduce, the Lightning Network, for example. So these are kind of the trends that we're seeing, and at least the good use cases that are being used, which is, thank God, outside of speculation.
Yeah, it's fascinating to kind of think about many of these countries, right? I think it was 2016 or so, I think I went to Nigeria. And one of the things that just blew me away was the internet penetration and the mobile phone penetration. Everyone had a phone and they were all in some form or fashion connected to the internet. And I probably was in kind of the computer village area in Lagos. So, definitely maybe like a little bit of an outlier from just the local economy. But when I think about that experience, you have to get the internet penetration. You have to get the mobile phone penetration in order for Bitcoin adoption to actually be present and to have that solution available. And so talk to me about kind of your understanding of where are we? Like, is it pretty much the default now that most young people are aware of the internet, use the internet, have mobile devices? Do they have internet access in their home? Like, where are we in some of these countries?
Yeah, so it varies because Africa is quite a huge continent, and specifically with regards to infrastructure, both energy-wise and in terms of internet infrastructure, it really varies a lot. So you're going to see a lot more of the, so to speak, developed energy infrastructure around the north parts of Africa and some parts of the south, like South Africa, for example, and Western Africa, with Ghana having 24 hours electricity, and then with Nigeria, not so much really when it comes to energy. And then with internet penetration, really it's less fragmented than the energy distribution across the continent, which is good for adoption specifically, like you mentioned. And one of the things we're seeing specifically with regards to the demographics using Bitcoin is not only are we seeing younger people, we're also seeing older generations who are, mom and pop stores actually getting access to Bitcoin. Because now with BitNow, for example, one of the use cases we're seeing grow is actually having these shop owners allow individuals to pay them in Bitcoin using BitNow. So they act as sort of this merchant system where people can actually interact directly with Bitcoin. And we're going to be seeing a lot more adoption with regards to using, POS systems over the Lightning Network. Now, specifically with regards to smartphone penetration, like you're talking about, it's really, really high. And again, pairing that with the youthful population, all that we're seeing is a lot more young people being actively, available online, which is great for using something like Bitcoin, which is digital and, digital native. So the thing that was specifically seen with regards to, adoption when it comes to pairing, the penetration rate as well as mobile phone adoption is we have to start thinking more in terms of trying to get more decentralized internet infrastructure here, or at least some sort of resilient internet infrastructure. So specifically things like mesh networking and some other ways in order to have a less of a reliance on some of the substandard internet infrastructure that we have on the continent, which we'll likely see more of going down the road.
Yeah, it's fascinating to kind of think about this. When you think about Bitcoin development, it's a weird thing where there's developers across the world who try to build technology for other groups. It could be in my own country. It could be someone in another country. It could be for a different language, a different religion, whatever it is. But there's a huge advantage if you're able to build technology for you, right? And build technology for your local community or the people that you grew up with, et cetera. What is the state currently of Bitcoin development in some of these countries? And then how do you think about the importance of making sure that people who not only are from African nations, but actually live in African nations are participating in the Bitcoin development process?
Yeah, so that's definitely a great one. And over the years, we've seen quite a lot of progress in terms of actual development overall. So I like people to think of development as more of a holistic chunk in terms of Bitcoin. So when we say development, we're not specifically only narrowing it down to developers per se. We're also looking at individuals that are contributing overall to the ecosystem. So we're talking about language translation, for example, which there are great strides being made across the continent. So there are already individuals that are actively working on translating a lot of the Bitcoin material into their native languages, into Amharic and some of the other languages, which is great because you think about it, people can only benefit from Bitcoin if they know about it. And if everything is locked into English, so to speak, then they're locked out essentially from having this information readily available to them. Now, when it comes to developers, we're seeing a lot more people at least recognize that, number one, there's some sort of viable job option when it comes to actually working on Bitcoin. And it's not just a bunch of folks who are working pro bono, So unfortunately, obviously, there are a couple of shitcoin projects that come into the continent and just, airdrop a ton of money and then bring out a lot of these developers in terms of the mindshare onto building for shitcoin projects. But we're seeing a lot more individuals flock towards Bitcoin as they realize a lot more of the resilience that they're looking for in terms of both freedom and an actual monetary network to use for, global remittances on Bitcoin, as opposed to some of these other chains. We're seeing a lot more people build on Bitcoin. That's one. We're seeing a lot more people get interested to actually learn about Bitcoin, both from a developer perspective and in terms of average individuals trying to use Bitcoin. Another good thing that we're seeing is, with the introduction of Gala, for example, which I'm a part of. And the good thing or the great thing with Gala is already we're currently, having, the 13 participants, which will be graduating into the ecosystem to actually get Bitcoin jobs. So the cool thing with this project is we're allowing developers not only to learn about Bitcoin, but to actually practically have projects that they build on Bitcoin in order to build out their portfolio and actually look at ways in which they can improve Bitcoin, or at least improve the usage of Bitcoin on the continent. So they're kind of localizing the context of Bitcoin development through this program. So we're going to be seeing a lot more projects like Gala come up. We're going to see a lot more people engaging in language translation. We're going to see a lot more wallets and services integrate the Lightning Network, especially, and a lot more people trying to look at Bitcoin as more than just a speculative asset, like I said, and a true financial freedom tool.
Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and see you next time.